Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company on the 440 Sports Network here on the program today, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Of course, call the Happy Face Truck today. Call them every day. On YouTube, at Stillman and Co. Again, like and subscribe. We keep bumping up that subscriber count every day, but I'm looking at it and it's like we gained by 1, we gained by 2. Like, let's gain by about 30 today. Let's gain by about 40 today. Let's up that subscriber count. Once again, please get in here, like, and subscribe. And again, we're presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Today, very excited about a guest we're going to have on the program. We're not a very guest-heavy program, but today, I am actually incredibly excited to have Sam Bruchhaus on the program. He is the lead analyst of the analytics company Sumer Sports. Remember, we used Sumer Sports a couple weeks back when we tried to figure out what the trade value on Chigakonkwo was going to be and what the trade value on Tony Pollard would be, or Draymond Jones, or any of those kind of guys. Again, that's what Sumer Sports does, and he will join us on the program. And when we have Sam Bruchhaus on the show, we will go over what the analytics say about Cam Ward. We will go over what the analytics, the numbers, say about this upcoming draft class. Because, again, the Titans are going to have a high pick. Do you have to take the Ruben Bain if he's there as a pass rusher at the top? Do you trade back? How deep is the draft class? Again, what do the numbers say? What do the analytics say? And I have crapped on analytics for years. If you've listened to me, you know I do the analytics when Dan Campbell stupidly goes forward on every fourth down in the NFC title game. But when it comes to Sumer Sports, and Sumer Sports used to be run by Thomas Dimitrov, when it comes to Sumer Sports, I had Sam Bruchhaus on at the Super Bowl, and at the time, he was the lead draft analyst for Sumer Sports. Now he's their big dog, the lead analyst. And he came on the show at the Super Bowl. And Matt Stopsky, who runs their communications at Sumer Sports, good friend of mine, used to work at Sirius XM, etc. And I told Matt Stopsky, I was like, just know, I'm very hard on analytics and analytics people. And so I tell you right now, if you're going to have this guy on the program, just remember, I am not an analytics guy. And he came on our show at Radio Row at the Super Bowl, and he said, their numbers, their analytics, their data said Jackson Dart QB1. Cam Ward not that good. Shedeur Sanders not that good. And this was at the Super Bowl. So this was before all the draft hype and the Mel Kipers and everything. This was at the Super Bowl. Their numbers said Jackson Dart QB1. Cam Ward not so good. Shedeur Sanders not so good. So what are the numbers saying now? Sam will join us in about 20 minutes or so. But I want to start today's program on something that I was surprised was a really big deal yesterday on the internet as far as the Titans and Cam Ward are concerned. So we are at the point in the Tennessee Titans season where everybody is ready to move on from 2025. This is how I felt my senior year of college. Like, it was great. I loved college. I had a great experience in college. I met a lot of great people in college. But when it got to my last year at Louisville, I was ready to leave. I was ready for something new. I was ready to get my career as a broadcaster started. It was time for me to move on. That's how I feel, and I think that's how everybody feels about the last 8 games of the 2025 Titans season. It's time to move on. I mean, even looking at the numbers, I have a buddy that does this who covers the Vikings. And he's like, yeah, it's tough doing a digital show when the team sucks. Now, he said it's nothing like draft season and free agency, which numbers skyrocket. Hell, even coaching search season will probably be pretty big around here. But when it comes to the rest of the season, it's just a long trudge. We're just trying to get to the finish line. Hell, they're just trying to get to the finish line. And they've got 8 games left. They'll probably lose 7 times. Most of the games won't be very close. Houston stinks. They come in here this week. They're a 6.5-point favorite on Sunday. So we'll just have to wait until the Titans hire a coach and go through another offseason. And maybe they'll make a good trade that gets us excited as far as the draft is concerned. Maybe they'll add some players that don't have knee injuries that'll get us excited. And maybe we'll see a light at the end of the tunnel. But as far as us Titans fans are concerned, for the rest of the year, I mean, there is nothing to look forward to. And I think you guys know that. In fact, I have to assume the fans feel the same way because Fox has determined to show the Titans game in as few homes as humanly possible. If you go to the 506 Sports, no Memphis, no Knoxville, no Northern Alabama, and very, very little Kentucky. So you have to live in like Scottsville, Kentucky in order to get the Titans game. I don't even think they get the Titans game on Sunday in Bowling Green. And the game they're going to get instead is apparently this unbelievable showdown. Fox said, we have got to get this unbelievable showdown on TV. And the game is Minnesota and Chicago. Woo! Long story short, the season's over, and so is most of our interest as far as the season is concerned. That said, there are 8 games left. And Cam Ward needs to get better. And these last 8 games, in my opinion, can't just be worthless for Cam Ward. They need to show growth. They need to show improvement. They need to, and I'm going to keep using this term, give Titans fans hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel. That is what you need. That is what we need. And yet, if yesterday's little snippet from Jim Wyatt on Twitter was any indication, it feels like this team and their effort in practice, in spite of what the interim coach and the general manager say about how great the assistant coaches are and about how great practice is and about how dedicated Cam is and how hard he works. If you looked at Jim Wyatt's Twitter yesterday, and apparently a lot of the quarterback coaching gurus out there did, they were not impressed with what they saw out of practice from, again, the little snippet that they're allowed to show you. This is what Jim Wyatt put up on Twitter. Take a look. So just a little lollygag drill where Quincy Avery, who is a high-end quarterbacks coach, had 8 minutes to work on fundamentals, and this is where you land. Sean McAvoy, high-end quarterbacks coach, he's on there talking about, again, I mean, you're going to waste your time doing this? I mean, again, the quarterback's not even, what's he doing? And Kurt Warner even chimed in on Twitter, the Hall of Fame quarterback, saying, quote, "What I'm trying to figure out is why have we decided a quarterback hopping through bags with no power in his back foot to explode through players, attack a throw or take off and move is a thing we should practice. I have no idea how this hopping applies in a game. Someone fill me in because I see quarterbacks practicing it all over the place." Even Kurt Warner's like, what am I looking at here? So if Jim Wyatt's Twitter, and again, that's just a tiny little video that Jim Wyatt was allowed to put up because the only thing that they're allowed to shoot when it comes to practice anymore is guys stretching and guys in individual drills. The whole point of that is to allow the news crews to get what's called B-roll footage so that when they're talking about big game on Sunday against the Houston Texans, Corey Curtis, News 2 here, who's going to play? They have something to show in the background of the news. And so in that little B-roll footage, they got a drill that the quarterbacks were doing, an individual period, and the quarterback coaches out there are like, what in the fuck are they doing? And Kurt Warner's like, somebody explain to me why we're doing this drill. This doesn't, I mean, you're not going to do this in a game. And so yesterday, a ball security drill with Cam Ward, which was blasted by the top quarterback coaches around the country, has basically just wasted time on the practice field, is a bad sign when, again, I think Cam Ward needs to improve over these last 8 games of the season. These last 8 games of the season cannot just be completely worthless, and no matter what happens, we bury our heads in the sand and just assume Cam Ward's going to be better next year with a new coach. And see, this epitomizes what I think is my biggest problem with the Cam Ward pick. He was a project quarterback in the draft last year. And by not knowing how inept the head coach was and the coaching staff was, in spite of the fact that this wasn't a new head coach, Chad Brinker was here last year and watched Brian Callahan coach the football team every day. So the fact that you didn't know how inept of a coach Brian Callahan was, and you drafted a project quarterback anyway, is already setting up that project quarterback to fail. And I don't care who the project quarterback is. I don't care if it's Anthony Richardson. I don't care if it's Justin Fields. I don't care if it's Josh Allen. I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes. Again, I've got 2 of the best quarterbacks and 2 of the worst quarterbacks, and they're all projects who all needed development. Cam Ward fits in that group. He needs development. And you took him with an inept head coach and a terrible coaching staff, and here they are just going through the motions, and what a lot of these quarterback coaches are saying is a total waste of time in the individual period of practice. And we talk about how Cam needs to have better mechanics. Well, here you are in practice, just going through the motions. They've already taught him bad habits. They've already bruised his confidence. And the coaches that you pick next year might have a new scheme, a new offense, new verbiage, and they might have new mechanics that they want Cam Ward to play with. So if you draft a project quarterback in the first round, you need to draft him with a coach that you know can develop a quarterback and not a coach you might fire in 8 weeks. And the Titans did this with a quarterback that then had a coach that got fired within 8 weeks. And so you're going to be starting all over again next year. And this is why I think the Titans need to see something out of Cam Ward. This is the real reason why. Because they're going to end up with a new coach. And they're probably likely to end up with the number 1 overall pick in the draft as well. And how many times have we said it that a new coach, he didn't pick that quarterback. And the new coach will not have picked Cam Ward, even though it should be assumed by taking this job that you've decided you're going to pick Cam Ward. Instead, what's going to happen is you're going to get a new coach who's going to have new schemes on both sides of the ball. You're going to have to draft new players for that new coach. And there's a chance that your new coach may not want to play with the style of quarterback that Cam Ward is. And if you've got the number 1 overall pick in the draft, that new coach may find and take a look at the draft class, Fernando Mendoza or Ty Simpson or one of these guys out there, Dante Moore, as his guy instead of Cam. In fact, Braden Gall was on the show yesterday, and listen to Braden Gall talk about the difference between Ty Simpson, who he thinks is going to go number 1 overall, and Cam Ward.
Ty Simpson has all the things that you want Cam Ward to have. I'm just saying, like, let's say we believe in Cam Ward for the sake of conversation. And what are the things he needs to do? Well, pocket presence is one, his footwork is another, and being very specific with his body control. Ty Simpson is one of the most polished pocket movers I have seen in college football in a while. You watch his footwork in the pocket. You watch how he changes platform. You watch how he drives up the pocket to deliver a pass when he feels pressure. Like, he does all the things. And I'm not saying that Cam Ward is not going to find the ability to do that. But if you watch Ty Simpson this week against a very good defense in Oklahoma, you'll see all the things that you need to see from Cam Ward next year. If I could get a first round, this is fairy tale, like La La Land stuff. But if you're telling me I could get a first round pick for Cam Ward, which I think you could do, frankly, probably a late, like you go to the Rams and say, hey, look, you have 2 first-round picks. Trade me your last pick. We'll give you your last first-round pick, which will probably be 26, 27, 28 or whatever this year. We'll give you Cam Ward and we'll take Ty Simpson number 1. Like, I think that is a better place for the franchise to be, but it's not realistic.
Okay. Braden's saying right there that, hey, if you can get a first-round pick for Cam, I think I'd do it. He's like, I think I'd take Ty Simpson with the first pick, and I would trade Cam Ward to get a first-round pick, which, by the way, I think you probably can do. Again, I don't know how the draft order is going to shake out, but Cleveland has multiple number 1s. The Jets have multiple number 1s, and there are 2 quarterbacks in this class. There's Fernando Mendoza, and there's Ty Simpson. I've been told that Dante Moore is going back to Oregon, and again, I don't want to knock him because my buddy's the offensive coordinator there, but I keep waiting for Oregon to kind of pop with him at quarterback, and they didn't really do it outside of a little smidge of that Penn State game. Certainly didn't do it against Indiana. And last week, I mean, Dante Moore made a beautiful throw at the end of the game against Iowa, but I thought that there was a lot to be desired as far as Dante Moore's concerned. So if there's 2 quarterbacks and the Jets are desperate for a quarterback and have multiple first rounders, and the Browns are desperate for a quarterback and have multiple first rounders, and you end up with the number 1 pick, in theory, you could look at them and say, hey, we're going to take Ty Simpson or we're going to take Mendoza. And would you like to trade us the later of your 2 first-round picks and you get Cam Ward? I mean, it would be a terrible, terrible look given what they turned away for Cam Ward last year. But again, the information is different today than it was then. And again, you cannot in the NFL throw good money to chase bad, even though teams do it all the time. So I'm not saying you have to give up on Cam, because there are a lot of you out there that really wanted to believe in Cam. And I think there are a lot of you out there, TDG, who still do believe in Cam. The Titans believe in Cam. Now, I have given up on Cam because I didn't love Cam as a prospect, and I thought that there was a certain infrastructure that needed to be in place. There needed to be a certain level of competence that needed to be in place for Cam Ward to develop correctly. And the Titans, and they'll even admit it themselves, they've completely fucked that up. Now, what the Titans seem to believe is that it doesn't matter. You could have had the worst coach in the history of the NFL, like Rich Kotite, coaching the Tennessee Titans, and he's not going to ruin Cam Ward because Cam Ward is unruinable, according to the Titans. That's how they feel. I completely disagree with that. I've seen project quarterbacks ruin and be ruined all the time in the NFL. So, again, I'm not saying you have to give up on Cam Ward. I have given up on Cam Ward because I didn't like Cam, and I thought there was a certain kind of system they had to have in place in order for Cam to be successful, and they've already messed that up. But Cam Ward's got 8 games left. He needs to show the Titans and the fans something positive this year. They got to show him something positive this year. And apparently even the practice snippets don't look very good. Again, Cam Ward leads the NFL in intangible qualities, according to the people that are colleagues of Cam Ward's. His GM, his coaches, oh my God, Draymond Jones. I mean, my goodness. I'll tell you, hey, this kid, he's so dedicated to be great. This kid, he's so good. You'll see. This kid, he's so. And then I watch a game on Sunday, and I don't see an accurate quarterback. I don't see a lot of big plays. I don't see touchdowns. I don't see first downs. I don't see good mechanics. I don't see any of it. So he got to show us something for the rest of the year. And again, that little practice snippet to these quarterback coaches that don't work for the Titans and don't have to go in the locker room and don't have to buddy with everybody. They saw it on Twitter yesterday and said, what are they doing there? Why are they wasting their time? And this is how you ruin a quarterback. Let's get to some of your reaction before Sam Bruchhaus joins us here in 5 minutes from Sumer Sports. And again, when Sam joins us, I'm going to ask, what are the analytics saying on Cam? Somebody tweeted me today and said, can you ask if there are any good analytics that support Cam Ward? Because all I'm seeing, and this is what the guy on Twitter said, all I'm seeing is the bad when it comes to Cam Ward. TDG says, come have a shot Sunday, Jared. Hell, might as well. So I'm not going to the game on Sunday. Gave my tickets to Max Hers. He's going to be going to the game. I will be going to the game next Sunday. So when they play Seattle, I will be going to the game, and post-game live might just have to wait until when I get home. But I'm going to the Seattle game, and you know why I'm going to the Seattle game, right? Because I got to see the Sam Chi's quarterback, Sam Darnold, in person. So I'm going to go to the Seattle game. That'll be the one game I go to this year, unless it's too rainy or too cold or something like that. Jessica says, I almost hate being an IU fan this year. I like Cam, but I no longer want to be tempted with the thought of Mendoza on this team. You know, I'll say this, Jessica, about Indiana football. First of all, congratulations. They're a very good team. They're a very disciplined team. They're a very well-coached team, and they're a very good team. And when it came to Mendoza, I was watching the game on Saturday against Penn State, and I said, you know what? If this kid's worth the number one pick in the draft, he'll drive them down the field and win the game. And I'll be damned if he didn't do that. Now, when I watch him play quarterback, I see Jared Goff, albeit I think he's more accurate than Jared Goff. But the reasons that Jared Goff has a ceiling, in my opinion, as a quarterback are not because of his talent, but it's because, I hate to say it, I think Jared Goff might be too stupid. Either that, or there's something about Jared Goff in these big games where he just doesn't have that elite switch in him. And I think that might be a mentality more than it is a talent thing. Well, Mendoza might have that elite switch in him. So I'm going to say his ceiling is a more athletic Jared Goff. That's who I think Mendoza could be. Well, I certainly think that's better than Cam. And as a Titan fan, I'll just remind you of this, because I think the Titans are going to go into the draft and they're going to say, we don't need a quarterback. Cam Ward's our guy. And I think Titan fans are going to go into the draft and they're going to say, we don't need a quarterback. Cam Ward's our guy. And I think that's what they're going to believe. But I go back to 2017 because you had the 5th pick in that draft and Patrick Mahomes was on the board. And you didn't have any interest in the quarterbacks because Marcus Mariota was our guy. And I'm not saying that they should have taken Mahomes, but I think if you're being honest with your football team, you look at your quarterback and you say, this is what we think this quarterback is going to be. Not can be, not we hope he will be. This is what he's going to be. And if there is a guy out there on the board who you think is going to be much better, in the long run, you're better off taking him. I know that's not what teams in the league do. Arizona did it with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray. It does not happen very often. Although you kind of did that with Will Levis and then you went all in on Cam. But I'm just saying, again, if you want the best team, the way to get the best team is to take the best player. And if Mendoza or Ty Simpson are better than Cam Ward, then you should want to take them because you should want them to play quarterback and have a better quarterback. And LD says, so what's the plan? Draft another quarterback in 2026? I mean, I think their plan is to trade out of that pick and to spend a bunch of money in free agency and hope that with a new coach, Cam will figure it out. And maybe he will. I'm not buying that, but that's what they think. One person says, not every quarterback is a project. They might have a few flaws. Cam has literally every flaw. Bad pocket awareness, bad footwork, terrible ball velocity control, not knowing when to run. Yeah, I mean, I had a hard time when Mike Borgonzi was asked about Cam, and he said that he looks like a rookie quarterback on a team that had the number 1 pick. And then we put up the graphic in which it had all the guys whose teams earned the number 1 pick. So it doesn't count Bryce Young, and it doesn't count Caleb Williams, and it doesn't count Jared Goff. But over the last 10 years, from Jameis Winston to Baker Mayfield to Joe Burrow to Kyler Murray to Trevor Lawrence, and all of those guys were better in every single category than Cam Ward. And at some point, I'm going to need Cam Ward to get good at something. Daniel says Jackson Dart's coach also got fired. You know, when I watch Jackson Dart play, you know who I see a lot of? I said this after he had that great game on Thursday Night Football against the Eagles. But I see a quarterback love child that is half Will Levis, half Joe Namath. And I don't know which one Jackson Dart's going to end up as. But Jackson Dart loves to take off with the ball, and he loves to not protect himself, and he loves to get hit, which college quarterbacks often come into the NFL and think they can do. And then the veteran NFL quarterbacks are like, stop doing that before you lacerate your spleen and kidneys. Dart's got to stop that. And I was listening to Charles Robinson on Robbie and Joe this morning, and he was talking about Jackson Dart and the injuries he's gotten, and Brian Dable trying to save his job by playing Jackson Dart. And I got that. And when I saw that, I kind of shook my head, and I'm like, that's why I kept saying all offseason, even in the preseason when Dart was playing well, I kept saying he needs to be on the bench. One person says, what exactly were Titans scouts looking at when they fell in love with Cam, if indeed he falls into the developmental slot? So this is just me. I think they talked themselves into Mahomes. And I think it was really more Borgonzi and Callahan that's just a gut feeling, that it was Borgonzi and Callahan that talked themselves into Cam Ward is the next Mahomes. And I think part of it is because every single one of these coaches, but especially the young coaches, think, I can coach him. And so Brian Callahan, with the prospect of getting the number one pick in the draft, who does have talent. I mean, Cam has first round-ish talent. He probably thought, I can coach him. And so when it came to the idea that, hey, we're going to take Cam Ward, he probably thought, I can coach him. And then when it came to Mike Borgonzi, I don't know what Mike Borgonzi was thinking. Because, again, what they did in Kansas City was they went out and got Alex Smith, and then they built a team around Alex Smith. And once they built the team around Alex Smith, it was like, hey, now we can build our team up. Now let's go get the quarterback we love, and then let's sit him on the bench behind Alex Smith, and then let's deploy him. And I thought, again, the Alex Smith was sitting out there and Sam Darnold, and they said, no, let's just jump right to Mahomes, but not do anything that they did in Kansas City for Mahomes, and let's do that for Cam. And so, again, to answer your question, what were the Titans looking at when they fell in love with Cam? I don't know. Okay. Sam Bruchhaus set to join us here in just a second. Again, the lead analyst from Sumer Sports, the analytics company. I crapped on the analytics at the Super Bowl. He came on and said, hey, our analytics say Jackson Dart's better than Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and I'll be damned if that isn't what has happened so far. First, though, let me tell you about the fine folks out there at Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Hiller has been in business since 1990. They are family owned and operated with 100% satisfaction of happy you'll be or the service is free. If a customer is not pleased with the work performed, Hiller will make it right. You can learn more by visiting happyhiller.com. Again, I use Hiller at my home. They're fabulous. Professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians that come into your home and leave it clean and better than they found it. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, where care is their core value. They believe when they care about others, everybody wins. Proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, Sam Bruchhaus joins us now on the program, the lead draft analyst, or I say lead draft. You're just the lead analyst now at Sumer Sports. First of all, congratulations on the promotion, big guy.
Hey, look, I'm working hard, and I got to give a shout out to my producer Stopsky, who bestows these titles on me. I'm just trying to do good work, and that's what I'm trying to do for you today, Jared. Okay, so speaking of Stopsky, I already talked about him today on the show because last year, when he said, I want you to have Sam Bruchhaus on your show at the Super Bowl, I said, I dump on these analytic companies. I think it's all bullshit. I think it's all, oh, yeah, go for it on every fourth down. Oh, yeah, the numbers. You got to.
I will say this. You sat down with me and you said, I don't know what it is, Our numbers say Cam Ward, not that good. Shedeur Sanders, not that good. Jackson Dart is QB1 according to our numbers. You need to go back and look at the tape, but that's what you said. So I have to ask, when it came to drafts, what exactly did the Sumer Sports analytics not like about Cam Ward that they did like about Jackson Dart?
Look, so this makes the chest tight a little bit, because as a draft researcher, you find a lot of wisdom in the crowd. So I kind of was a Shedeur Sanders guy. There were other people that loved Cameron Ward. But when you look at pure production from Jackson Dart, that is what separated him. And the kind of phrase that I like to use was first read and dart. He was a first read guy, and then he would scramble. The irony was he was incredibly efficient at scrambling. He was incredibly efficient at hitting his first read. And that is just what he's done up until injury in the National Football League. Has that led to a ton of victories? Has that led to an awesome offense? No, but he's been able to produce with his legs. He's one of the best expected points added per rush quarterbacks in the league. And he's been able to kind of figure it out through the passing game. Has it led to his head coach getting fired? Perhaps. I wonder if that wasn't more injury related and them tossing him out and letting him get hurt and some other off the field stuff. But when it really came down to it, the difference between Dart and Sanders and Ward was really that ability to scramble and that ability to avoid sacks. And we've seen that kind of hurt Ward in particular in a Titans jersey, and we haven't even seen Sanders. So who knows at this point?
Okay, then I want to go to what the analytics say now about Cam Ward, because every statistic that's out there is bad. And everything that we see on Sundays is bad. Now, Titans fans, to a certain extent, some are worried that they took a lemon with the first overall pick. But I think there's this belief that the team is so bad and the coaching was so bad that Cam Ward is actually Mahomes, but is just on a bad team. What does the unbiased data that you have at Sumer Sports say about Cam Ward?
Okay, so as compared to every other quarterback in the league, Cam Ward is not good. I don't think that's any shock to any of your listeners or viewers. You look at basically anything from sack rate, which I just talked about, to expected points added, which basically tries to put yards in context and says that, you know, getting 7 yards on third down isn't as good as getting 7 yards on 1st and 10. He hasn't been very good. The good news or the hopeful news is that he's been about an average rookie, which is pretty good. You look at the typical averages from rookies, you're talking about around 2,500 yards at the end of the season passing. We're talking about a 12 to 10 touchdown ratio. And if he has a good game or two, he'll be right around that average. And we've seen people be able to turn that into successful careers after their first year. And you look at our Sumer scores as well, which is using tracking data and trying to understand the relationships between a quarterback and his offensive line and a quarterback and his wide receivers. And it thinks he's been about an average, a slightly below average quarterback as well. The problem is there's only 2 real blue chip players on this team right now. They're both on the defensive side of the ball. And you start looking at that wide receiver room and you start getting into guys who are playing slightly above average or well below average. And I think that kind of explains the relationship between him and all the receivers as told by the tracking data, is he's kind of getting hung out to dry a little bit.
Okay, so you're telling me that the tracking data that Sumer Sports has
Correct.
actually aligns with the idea that Mike Borgonzi said last week when asked about Cam Ward, where he said he looks like a rookie quarterback on a team that had the number 1 pick, because he does not compare statistically to Joe Burrow or to Baker Mayfield or to Jameis Winston or to Kyler Murray or to Trevor Lawrence when they were on teams that had the number 1 pick. But you're saying the Sumer Sports tracking data actually says, hey, Cam's been average rookie quarterback. This team just sucks that bad.
Yeah, and some of those guys are rookie of the year guys, right? And so you start getting deep into the people who have been drafted with these high picks, you know, the 1st or 2nd or 3rd pick, depending on the year. And it starts to kind of average out. And so the real question at this point is, can you get past the loser's curse? There's this theory in economics. I don't know if you've seen The Big Short, but the guy who explains at the poker table with Selena Gomez is the guy who actually wrote this about the National Football League, about football, that because the way the draft is set up, these teams suck. And the reason why typically quarterbacks coming in is that they're not very good. And that's not helped by the fact that the head coach was fired for, let's just say it. He was fired because he wasn't putting the people in a position to win. And I think when you combine all of those things, it leads to a situation, much like we've seen with the guys who have moved on, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, where it just becomes a toxic situation. The good thing is I think he has maintained his kind of off the field spirit to a certain degree. And I do think that they have some core pieces on the defense and along the offensive line that are a little younger that do make sense moving forward. We just got to get him some pass catchers moving forward. And we got to make sure that we hit with this new head coach. And particularly, I'm very interested in who they bring in to be the quarterback coach as well.
Okay, so let's hit on the new head coach. What kind of philosophy? Is there data that says, hey, this is the right kind of coach that you want for Cam Ward? Or is there a philosophy that you subscribe to? What do you make of where they should go with the next coach if they're going to try to turn this around with Cam Ward?
Choosing a head coach is a lot like choosing a quarterback in that there's not a lot of data on it, and it's very difficult to get a sense of what you should do. My general philosophy, having played though, is that you need someone who is organizationally efficient. That's something that people don't really understand. And I think we kind of saw it this week with Dan Campbell kind of taking over offense coordinator play calling duties, is that Dan Campbell is an organizational genius. And that's why he's a good head coach. And he made he identified that they weren't running the ball, that they weren't passing the ball enough on first down, that they weren't running enough play action. That was their little sugar for success in the past years. Organizationally, he decides to make a swift move. He takes over play calling duties, implements that. I think that's very key. And I think, frankly, that's what was lacking with the Titans. There wasn't a high level of organization. I know a lot of people want to go out there and get an offensive play caller. I think that the reason why people like to do that is because they don't want to shake up a rookie quarterback. And so if you're going to give a head coach 2 to 3 years, go ahead and go get you a play caller, because that way, if you are super successful, your offense coordinator doesn't leave immediately and go become an offense coordinator somewhere else. We saw that in particular with Shane Steichen in the early years of Jalen Hurts. He all of a sudden becomes the Colts offense coordinator. Head coach Brian Johnson steps in as the offense coordinator. Offense takes a regression. They have to switch back to Kellen Moore, so forth and so on. So I think those are some good rules. Number one, try to identify someone who is a great organizational leader. Number two, if you want to stick with Cam Ward, which you want to for at least the next 2 years before you have to make an extension decision on him or a fifth-year option decision in him, you probably want to go get an offensive play caller just so you can remain consistent. It's not an absolute need, but it probably is something that you want to go ahead and do.
Sam Bruchhaus with us, the lead analyst from Sumer Sports. What do you know about this upcoming draft class? Because the Titans might have the number 1 overall pick again. Again, I think there's going to be a little chatter early on about, is Ty Simpson or Mendoza better than Cam Ward? Should they try to trade Cam, take one of those guys? But let's push that off to the side for a second. If the Titans are sitting there at 1, that means a team like Cleveland or a team like the Jets that have 2 first-round picks will not be able to get their hands on the quarterback that they absolutely love if Tennessee's sitting there at 1 unless they take a risk. So I have to ask, when it comes to this draft class, how good is it, and how much can the Titans really get by trading out of that first pick to build their team with high assets, high value assets in the draft?
So let's say the Titans even get a pick in the first 5 picks, because you go and you look at the consensus pick board, which, as I said, a draft researcher, does bring a lot of value when you just look at it in the aggregate. And right now there's 3 quarterbacks there. So really this can apply between pick 1 and pick 5. I think when you sit down and you say, can Mendoza, can Ty Simpson, can Dante Moore be better than Cam Ward, it's a coin flip. It's a 50-50 toss-up, because, as I said, Cam Ward is performing as an average rookie quarterback, average rookie first-round quarterback. So it's difficult to say. I don't like the odds of 50-50. So how can I get this team better for Cam Ward very quickly? I think the answer would be trading back. I think there is a lot of overconfidence at the top of the draft. And I think especially very key in a draft where there will be lots of offensive linemen, including Spencer Fano, Francis Malagoa from Miami. Like, there's a lot of these offensive tackles, Caden Proctor from Alabama. Those can be guys that you can probably build around alongside J.C. Latham. You have more in there, but you want to bring in guys that can be versatile and play immediately at the offensive line position. Moreover, You have Simmons, the defensive tackle, who, for one reason or another is playing extremely well, but is struggling with injury, struggling with other stuff, but he's playing really well on the field. You want to add another piece, great edge rushers, great kind of linebacker hybrids who we have seen be successful. Reuben Bain at the top is my favorite. He's probably going to be my number one player when I really dig into it deeply. I like to compare him to Terrell Suggs, the former defensive player of the year. That's high praise, but that's who he kind of reminds me of. And we haven't seen a player in that mold in a long time. Also, Avril Reese from Ohio State, another kind of hybrid linebacker. We've talked about Parsons. We've talked about Abdul Carter. Jalen Walker's playing good in Atlanta. He's one of those guys. And so I think there's a lot of value for the Titans to be had by having multiple options with the first pick or the second pick or the third pick. And I think probably trading back and locating in on a tackle, which you'll be able to get in the middle round, or just staying put and going to get an edge rusher would be a good usage.
What would you do at wide receiver? You kept bringing up pass catchers, and let's add tight end in there too, because I do not think Chigakonkwo nor Gunnar Helm is a starting caliber tight end on a good team. So what would your goal be then if you're going to take Reuben Bain or you're going to take Avril Reese in the first round? How would you rebuild the pass catching core? Because to your point, it's not good enough right now.
Yeah, so I think when you really look at it, there's some real value at the end of the first round, early second round, which will be where they are picking. We've seen people get value there before. The Chargers in particular notably went with a tackle, Joe Alt, who became a Pro Bowl level performer and now is a little banged up, and we're seeing how that kind of is affecting their offense, even though Justin Herbert has played very well. And waited to get Ladd McConkey in the second round. I think that is a great option, and I think the name to look out for is Mekhi Lemon from USC, who is very much in that Ladd McConkey mold of a guy who in your head you may think is a slot guy, an old school type slot guy, but really can do everything and is kind of sneakily a five-tool wide receiver. I think you can actually get some true value from a guy like Mekhi Lemon or like Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon as well, who's a tight end, a guy who can kind of do it all. And as a result, people don't think he can do anything super highly. He could slip into the back half of the first round. You trade up with the second pick or maybe another pick, or you just wait, hold pat, get him in the early second. I think there's immense value in doing that.
So I have to ask this question when it comes to Sumer Sports, because I do know that you guys work with specific teams in the league, though you keep that data in-house and don't tell us who you guys work with or whatever. Do you deal with the teams directly yourself, or is that more of the nerds in the backgrounds that are working in the data centers?
I personally do not. We have like a professional account managers. I don't think anyone wants me, just spouting poetic about all this data science stuff, but we have account managers that work with them.
Okay. Why do the Titans suck so bad? Like, why is it that teams that sucked so bad last year don't suck as bad this year? And yet the Titans might actually be worse than they were last year when they got the number one pick.
I think there's two items here. I want to go back to what's called the loser's curse, because like this is football. This is not basketball. And when you're dealing with basketball, you get a ton of sample size on these guys, even when they're just freshmen in college. You've seen them all throughout high school playing against the top talent. You don't really get that in football. And so with the first, 1 to 5 to 10 picks in basketball, you have a very good hit rate. And that's why you can see teams pretty quickly flip when they do get a good draft pick. The Detroit Pistons come to mind. They get pick Cade Cunningham, who wasn't even one of the best number one picks of all time, and all of a sudden they're making the playoffs. In football, it's radically different. There's 11 players on both sides, 22 players banging into each other. It's very difficult to figure out who's good. You got guys like Cam Ward who play 5 years. You got guys like JJ McCarthy who play 3 years. It's kind of a mess. Ty Simpson is only going to really play 1 year. So it's kind of a mess there. The second item I want to call out, and if I recall correctly, you've had Thomas Dimitroff on the show, or at least talk to him about this, but it's really difficult in football, particularly when you're dealing with 53 guys, to keep cycling through head coaches and keep cycling through organizational structures. And I think that's kind of hurt the Titans a little bit. You have Mike Vrabel, who was there for several years, and I don't know all the information behind the scenes, but he had put together an organization. So it's going to take a year or two to figure that out. And given that we're going to now be on our second head coach and our second general manager, I believe, it's going to take some time to iron out what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. And I think we're seeing that with teams across the league. We're seeing that with the Jets right now, who clearly have a plan, but very shaken up. I mean, they traded two of the best players in the league, according to, most pundits. According to us, Quinnen Williams is playing really well. Sauce, not so much. But all of a sudden they have a plan. And you look at a team like the Carolina Panthers, and I think they've really implemented a really good plan. And we're starting to see them creep around 500 as a result of those moves. But here's what I think you really got to do. Invest in the interior offensive line and free agency. Invest in wide receivers, offensive tackles, and defensive ends in the draft. Try to hit on a cornerback in the mid rounds. Get a safety in free agency or late. Get a running back late. Tajay Spears, I think, is a great example of this. He's kind of hit despite being a later draft pick. He can take some starter reps and then just hope that the quarterback falls to you. Because frankly, you look at the research, you look at what's going on, and the quarterback is the hardest thing to predict, and you just kind of got to pray that you get it right. But if you do all those other stuff, interior offensive line through free agency, tackles, wide receivers, edges through the draft, figure all the other stuff out in the later rounds, I think that's the best way to approach it. And that's how we've seen teams like the Lions, for example, completely flip the script over a several year period.
So what you're saying is don't use the 11th overall pick on a guard like they did with Peter Skoronski. That I got.
I personally would not advise it.
Okay, thank you. But by the way, can I just add, Skoronski's fine. Like, he's a good guard. They're going to pay him top of the market money probably at the end of this year. I think they probably should, because if you let Skoronski go, then you have to go find another Skoronski. But can you explain from an analytic standpoint here for the people out there why you don't take fucking guards in the top 10, please?
It's a simpler analytical concept than when I first got into this, I expected. They don't make a lot of money. And when they don't make a lot of money and you draft them really high, they need to be really good in order to be worth the money that you are spending on them. So the best example of this, the running back position. I would never advise a franchise to draft a running back in the first round ever, even if there is one out there that is good. And the reason why is because as soon as you draft Ashton Genty, he's getting paid as much as like James Cook is getting paid now, or as like some of these other extremely highly paid running back. Tony Pollard, he's probably making more than Tony Pollard. I'll have to go check. But when you're paying someone that much money, they need to be expected to be like an all-pro. And it's changing a little bit with the guard position, in particular, given how offenses have changed, a lot more pulling, a lot more getting those guys on the outside, and defenses have changed, a lot more isolation on guards with edge rushers or four eyes and stuff like that. Changing slightly with guards, which I agree with you. I think re-signing Skoronski is a good deal for them. But when you look at the tackles and the wide receivers, the defensive ends, and the quarterbacks, you're going to make like $30 to $40 million in surplus off of them that you can go get to build around them. And you can evaluate pretty easily if a wide receiver or an edge rusher is good, because they have a lot of one-on-one opportunities. And so when you start thinking about that, you really want to get to the places in the first round where you can get maximum surplus so that you can set those guys up for success down the line by using more money and by using more draft capital on other positions.
Okay, I want to ask you a couple of just around the league questions, get your quick opinion on it. Number one, you guys at Sumer Sports have Justin Herbert right now as the league MVP.
Right.
I'm sorry, Sam Darnold is the league MVP. No. Because Sam was in Minnesota, they won 14 games, and everybody said it. Oh, no, it can't be because of Sam. Can't be because of Sam. It's got to be Kevin O'Connell. He's so smart. It's got to be Justin Jefferson. Well, Sam Darnold goes to Seattle. They are a freaking wagon, and Minnesota sucks. Even with the guru coach, even with Justin Jefferson, a receiver, how is Sam Darnold not the league MVP? Why is Justin Herbert the league MVP according to Sumer Sports?
Sam Darnold is not the MVP because Jackson Smith-Njigba is having one of the best wide receiver years we have literally ever seen. And
how good was Jackson Smith-Njigba before Sam Darnold showed up?
Look, he was good, but it was a different offense. There was a lot going on. You see the amount of separation that he's creating. That's showing up in our numbers. Right now, in terms of yards per route run, he's about a yard than what we've seen since 2022. It's incredible. And he is at 38% target share. It's getting to the point, Stillman, where we could take a snap, and we could probably throw to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Close our eyes, throw it to him. It's probably going to work out well. What I'm really their biggest test by far is this week.
Sure.
They're playing the Rams. The Rams are 4th in expected points added per play allowed. Basically, that means they're an extremely efficient defense. And this Seahawks offense has been relying on one thing to make Sam Darnold look good, and that is trotting out lots of tight ends, doing play action, and chunking the ball deep and hoping Jackson Smith and Jigba makes a play. He's been able to do it time after time after time. But I think the Rams have wisened up to what they're doing. I think they're going to trot out a dime or nickel look every single play. And they're going to basically say, okay, we don't think you can run because you're one of the worst run offenses in the league. So Sam Darnold, you're going to have to pick us apart, and you're going to have to do it by dropping back straight in the backfield. We're not going to bite on play action, and you're going to have to beat our guys. You're going to have to beat Cameron Curl, Quentin Lake, who we both have on our all-pro list. You're going to have to make sure you get the ball out before Byron Young and Kobe Turner and Jared Verse are on you. And so if I were to make a prediction, I think the brakes are going to kind of hit on the Seahawks this week because they're going to have to pass the ball more than they have, which they have not asked a ton of Sam Darnold. They have the highest run rate over expected in the league. And I just don't know if he can beat this extremely talented Rams defense. But if he does do it, I'm going to lean a little bit to your side that he is having an excellent year and he needs to be more in the discussion. I just don't see it happening based on what I've seen thus far.
Okay, what about Drake May in New England? How much of it is because of Drake? How much of it is because of Josh McDaniels? And how much of it is because of the great Mike Vrabel?
A lot of it is due to Drake May. Drake May, we have on our second team All-Pro, and it was by a mere percentage points. He has been absolutely excellent through the air. I do want to say, though, that I was watching a lovely Mike Leach clip, and he's winging it deep. And Mike Leach says that oftentimes when you wing it deep, it has to be, 25 to 50% of the wide receivers credit. Credit to Drake May for getting the ball up there and giving his wide receivers a shot. But I do think the addition of Diggs, the kind of explosion in play from Kayshon Boutte, some of the tight ends are playing well, the offensive line, Mike Okwinu, Morgan Moses, the addition, Will Campbell, the addition, have all played very well. But a lot of it is due to Drake May. He is playing extremely well. The thing that I think he can improve on is his scrambling, but I do attribute a lot of this to Drake May. I think he's had an excellent year.
Okay, I do wonder, again, when it comes to, we've seen some massive trades, Sam, this year, like that we've seen during the year. You go back to the beginning of the season, the 2 first-rounders and Kenny Clark for Micah Parsons. We saw the 2 first-rounders for Sauce Gardner. I think that's ridiculous. I think that is so stupid to trade 2 first-rounders for a corner. That's just me. And then we saw the first-rounder Dallas traded for Quentin Williams. When it comes to first-rounder, 2 first-rounders for all-pro caliber players, what do the analytics say? Do they say that's a smart bet, or do they say, Indy, what the fuck are you doing?
So I think it depends on the scenario. I think the Packers got away with a deal for Micah Parsons. You look at like the monetary value of a first round pick, and let's say it's not for a quarterback, for example, because the Cowboys are not looking for a quarterback. And it's going to come in well below the $47 million on average that Micah Parsons is making. Like you're not going to hit, you're not going to get one player, probably most likely, that is even remotely close to Micah Parsons, much less are you going to get 2. Now, you may be able to fill out other parts of that defense. I think it was, frankly, I don't know what went into that. It was substantially less than the Khalil Mack trade years ago. So I think that was just a unique scenario. Focusing in on the Sauce Gardner trade, I do think that was one where the Jets pretty handily won it. And here's why. When we're dealing with cornerbacks, they're one of the hardest positions to evaluate year to year. And so when you throw or slap that this guy was an all-pro in his rookie year or in his second year, that can mean a lot, but it doesn't mean at the cornerback position that he's going to continue that. The correlations between play year over year is very hard to evaluate, and it's very hard to say that Sauce Gardner is going to be an all-pro next year, even if he happens to be one this year, which we currently do not have him scored as an all-pro right now. We have him about a slightly above average starter. As a result, I do think that the Jets kind of got over on a team that had Danny Dimes throw 3 picks the week before the deadline, got a little shooken up and decided that we want to go and make a real run for it. And we don't know if we can do it with the guys on our team right now. Let's go get a guy who formerly was an all-pro and will maybe look a little bit better in Lou Anarumo's defense. I did not like the trade. I thought the Jets pretty handily won it because in reality, the value that they're going to get from Sauce Gardner is probably at or below one of those picks, in my opinion, over the next 3 years. And that's just kind of a tough go of it when you really break it down. That being said, you're adding a very good player to a very good team already. Maybe it's enough to just give them that 5% that bumps them from a conference championship team to a Super Bowl team. I'm not inclined to think that was the case. I think they probably could have done it as is.
Okay, last one for you. Sumer Sports did have their all mid-season, all-pro teams.
Yep.
2 Titans made the list. How?
Because they're playing well. And I think that's what our Sumer scores seek to do, is that a lot of these statistics that you see all the time, especially on the defense side of the ball, when you're dealing with tackles or even sacks, for example, even though that one's a little bit more predictive, it doesn't try to separate or attribute how a player is doing. And also it doesn't try to compare to every single player's movement going back to 2016. So I think Jeffrey Simmons has been playing really well. He's one of the standouts in the league, period. You look at the linebacker position with Cedric Gray. This year hasn't been a great year for linebacker play. There's not really any guys who are playing at like a true all-pro or a true MVP defense player of the year type level. But he is playing as one of the better players in the league. There is a good group of quality starter linebackers within the league, and he is one of those in particular. He's doing it in the run defense game. And if you recall last year, the Titans really weren't that bad of a defense. This year, the wheels have kind of came on. But I do think that up the spine, up the defensive tackle, linebacker, safety position, they do have some stuff to build on, particularly with Simmons and with Cedric Gray, particularly as it pertains to stopping the run. Now you got to focus on the most important part, which is stopping the pass. They spent a lot of resources on guys like L'Jarius Sneed. Hasn't really worked out. I think that's going to be a core issue in the middle and late parts of the draft for the Titans this year.
Sam Bruchhaus, Sumer Sports lead analyst. Sam, thank you so much, buddy. Always good to chat with you.
No, always fun. Thank you for having me.
Yep, Sam Bruchhaus joining us on the program, and we do appreciate him as always. Again, Sumer Sports, and they've got their all-pro lists out. Jeffrey Simmons, Cedric Gray. And I'm not a huge Cedric Gray guy, but you got to, hey, they say Cedric Gray. I think he's a little too small, a little too slow to making a bunch of tackles. But, hey, they seem to believe the analytic gurus who told us, hey, Jackson Dart's better than Cam Ward at the Super Bowl. They seem to believe in Cedric Gray. So at least there's that. Okay, it's Thursday night football tonight, which means we start with our Thursday night sermon, the one that we love here on our program ahead of the Jets and the Patriots. That game apparently tonight on Prime Video, which, I mean, I'm going to watch. You're going to watch too. I saw somebody in the chat said that, of course, Kaharski is going to be sitting down there ready to go to watch his favorite, the great Mike Vrabel, today. Okay, time for the Thursday night sermon. Number one, the NFL is the ultimate television show. The thing that they do best is that they try to put on as few bullshit matchups as possible. And they try their hardest to air the best matchups so that most of the country is watching meaningful football on Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and they're even trying it on Thursday Night Football. So can somebody explain to me why the Rams and the Seahawks are playing each other on Sunday in what is essentially a local market-only game? If you are looking at this map from 506 Sports, which we have put up on the stream, if you are looking at this map, the only areas in blue, the Pacific Northwest, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and for some reason, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and Buffalo are getting this game. The rest of the country is not going to get the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams, two of the best teams playing each other, so that they can protect the big doubleheader game, which is Kansas City, Denver. And look, I'll watch Kansas City, Denver, and so will you. But at the end of the day, we're all going to want to watch both Kansas City, Denver, and Seattle, LA. Why are the Jets on Thursday Night Football? Why are the Raiders on Monday Night Football? I'd much rather watch LA and Seattle. Can I get a name? Number 2, the Travis Hunter experiment for Jacksonville is already a big, big flop. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Jacksonville's idea was, we're going to take 2 number 1 picks and use them on Travis Hunter because he's going to be a number 1 wide receiver and a number 1 corner. And while I was fine with the theory of playing Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball, and I would have wanted to play Travis Hunter on both sides of the ball the way he did in college, I would not have advocated trading up for Travis Hunter. In order to justify that kind of move, Travis Hunter would have needed to be Justin Jefferson on offense, and he would have needed to be Deion Sanders on defense. He's not. Maybe instead of trying to hire someone who maybe one day when they grow up, they can be a good general manager like Jacksonville did, maybe they should hire somebody who's already been a general manager and already been a good general manager. Again, this was young Johnny wanting to make a big splash on draft night. And he did. And now Travis Hunter's hurt. And again, he's not an elite corner and he's not an elite wide receiver. And for what they paid, he needed to be both. Can I get an amen? Number 3, A.J. Brown has been an Eagle for 4 seasons. It's crazy, right? I mean, it feels like just yesterday he was a Titan through and through, and they said they weren't going to trade him, and then they did. And it's already 4 years in Philadelphia for A.J. Brown. And for 2 of them, A.J. Brown has absolutely nuked the Philadelphia Eagles locker room. Granted, the other 2 seasons ended in trips in the Super Bowl, and surely anybody would take that. But A.J. Brown has proven that he is a problem off the field, and he doesn't care about that either. And that was something the Titans were nervous about giving him a big contract with, because AJ's Twitter fingers, AJ's knees, and AJ's desire for a big contract all made them think if we do this, it could backfire on us. It gets lost in translation because the Titans have been so piss poor since the trade of A.J. Brown, though they were 7-3 immediately after they traded A.J. But the Titans' reservations about paying A.J. Brown weren't rooted in fiction. It wasn't like they just made it up. And the more A.J.'s team wins, apparently, the more unhappy A.J. Brown gets. When you're trying to build that Bill Belichick New England Patriot Way program, that's going to be an issue. In fact, it's an issue right now in Philadelphia. Can I get an amen? And finally, do you want to know how wide open the AFC is? According to the FanDuel Sportsbook, as of this morning, the team with the best odds to win the AFC is Kansas City at plus 300. If the playoffs started today, Kansas City would not even be in the playoffs. Baltimore has the 4th best odds, again, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, at plus 700. And right now, they sit as the 10th best team in the conference at 4-5. Translation, people just don't believe in Indianapolis, New England, or Denver to win the conference. In the end, if I was putting my money on it, I'd be putting it on Kansas City, Buffalo, and maybe even Baltimore. Can I get an amen? And finally, Dan Campbell, who I have criticized often for how much he goes for it on 4th down and how much of a caricature of a coach he feels like sometimes, how much of a mascot he feels like sometimes. But I have to give Dan Campbell credit. I was cautious of how Dan Campbell was going to perform this year without his starting all-pro center, without his offensive coordinator, without his defensive coordinator, without his right guard, who now plays on the Titans. And yet, they keep on humming in Detroit. And credit to Dan Campbell, who has a first-year offensive coordinator, didn't feel like he was doing the job correctly and said, I'm going to take over, and I'm going to show you how I want it done. He didn't just fire the offensive coordinator. He didn't kick him to the curb. He's showing him how he wants it done, and he's ultimately going to give it back to him. Apparently, that's what Dan Campbell did with Ben Johnson when he first started calling the plays for the Detroit Lions. Will it work? Will he get a Ben Johnson 2.0? Will he go to the Super Bowl finally? I don't know. That I couldn't tell you. Some guys have it when it comes to play calling. Some guys don't. But to me, I have to credit Dan Campbell's leadership to sit there and say, hey, here's how we're going to do it. And I want it done right. And that's all while trying to win games on a team that thinks they're competing for the Super Bowl. Hats off to a guy that I've criticized quite a bit in Dan Campbell. Can I get an amen? And that's our Thursday night sermon. That's going to do it for us today on the program. I want to thank Sam Bruchhaus for joining us from Super Sports. I want to thank all of you. Great comments today so far in the show. We'll have a Hot Take Friday coming up tomorrow. Hit the like. Hit the subscribe. We need the likes. We need the subscribes. We need the likes. Hit those likes right now. And again, thank you to everyone. Tell your friends, Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody live on YouTube tomorrow at 2 and wherever you get your podcasts.